Hello, fellow female activists. Your wellness coach, Cathy here. And anyone else who is coming by saying hello. It's always wonderful to have new people. Today is our wellness playlist. We are talking about mental fitness. And I am actually talking about my own experience dealing with my hypervigilance, as it's been with me for all my life and how it shows up, but how my tools, okay, that I want to share with you, can definitely help. So yes, I use my own tools. So before we start, we will start with our positive quotient repetition so that we drop into or show you how effective it can be when you are having the hypervigilance take over. So in this case, what I want you to do is, this is a fun one. I never used to like this when I first learned it, but it really resonates, especially when I'm hyper and when I'm like getting upset, you know? This one is fun. So what you're going to do, and only if you're safe, okay? And you don't have to close your eyes if you don't want to, but you can. What we're going to do, only if you feel safe, okay? You're going to tense up all of your body and then make sure to breathe and just pay attention to all the sensations. Here we go. Ready? One, two, three. Okay, scrunch it all up. Like, even if you're standing, you can still scrunch. Oh, yeah, it's gonna be just like if you're in the fetal position, really think about scrunching everything. Make sure you can still breathe. Oh, yeah. Like, it should scrunch out your face, your ear lobes, your buttocks, your feet. Scrunch it all up, your hands, and then let it go. Let it go. And really feel the circulation return. Your heart might be a little faster. And then realize how quickly, hopefully, it's going to return to a more steady, relaxed state. Feel your body get rid of the tense sensations as quickly as you created them. Really revel in how your body release that tension as soon as you let the tension go. And open up your eyes, blink them open if they're closed. So that one, a lot of people don't like it. It's called tense. Yes, it's definitely tense. But imagine that is what your body consistently feels like when it's under pressure. And it doesn't have to be, it can be the low incremental, the low grade stress that we feel when we get a microaggression. Okay, especially because we're women, and more in particular, if you're a woman of any type of minority. That sounds funny, but what's interesting is that we're a minority by power, but we are actually the majority, right? Females in the world, 2 to 1. Anyway, back to the mental fitness part. So, what I'm getting at here is that you felt all of this tension, and then once you were told to release it, you were cued to release it. Then all of a sudden, you let go of that energy and it flew away from your body. Keep in mind, that's exactly what's supposed to happen. When you get upset, okay, that energy is building up. And then at some point, you should be able to let it release. Whether you consciously do it or not, it should happen. Now, it's better if you consciously release it. And most of the time, it's not so conscious. So, me, right, I'm a wellness coach and I want to be your wellness coach. And being an advocate, right, for human rights, but for in particular reproductive, right, justice, it's all encompassing, right? But that's my focus is reproductive justice. But being in this type of high stress, constant advocacy, right? It's taxing. And so when you were in that little tight ball, Think about it. That's what your body is feeling constantly, from your head all the way down to your toes. And our bodies were not meant to feel that. Okay. Mental fitness comes about because we know how to intercept the saboteurs. In other words, we learn that they're there. Most people go their whole lives not realizing that they even have 10 saboteurs. And then the second core muscle of mental fitness is realizing, ooh, I want to then get from a saboteur mindset to a sage mindset. And believe it when I say that it only takes 5 different sage powers to overcome those 10 saboteurs. Interesting, right? And then the third core muscle for mental fitness that you want to get stronger is to actually take self-command. So it was me commanding you right now when to release that tension. Well, if no one was cueing you, how long would you have stayed in that state of tension? I'll wait. How long would you have stayed that way? And my guess is that maybe you didn't even realize there was a difference, right? That's the problem. Low grade stress is insidious and it keeps building, and you keep building a higher tolerance for it until which time your body says, no way, I'm done. And now you're in the hospital for some reason. And I know that from experience. So, my own experience, I am what is known as hypervigilant. That is my top saboteur. Okay. And if you want to know more about all those saboteurs, we can talk. But in any case, hypervigilance, when I first took the assessment, because I took it 2 different times, but the first time it was hypervigilance. And it didn't actually occur to me that that would make sense. And then when I read what hypervigilance was, I was like, oh my goodness, this explains everything. So those of us who have hypervigilance are always on alert. And what do you think that does to our nervous system? It does, it wreaks havoc, basically. And so quite recently, I unfortunately, and I say unfortunately because no one likes to go through what is known as an anxiety episode. But yes, I experienced one recently. And it's interesting because I had gone many years without having a really huge episode. So 2012, I remember very distinctly, was what I considered a very profound one, but I got over it. And I told myself in a whisper as I was recovering on the floor in the fetal position that I would go through, like, I would take the time to learn how not to let that happen again. So from 2012 until probably 2020, I hadn't really experienced what we consider a full-blown um, anxiety episode. And then it happened in 2021. Okay. And it wasn't even nearly the one in 2020 sucked. um, Now, keep in mind, I actually had 2 previous ones back in 2001 that sent me to the ER, which happened recently, by the way, and I'll get to that. But what I'm saying is that before I had tools, okay, I ended up twice in the ER within a week of each other's visit. And that's what sent me to therapy, okay? So again, from 2001 to 2012, I had, been working through therapy, right? I went to therapy. I should say I participated in therapy. Wonderful. Even if you don't think you need therapy, go to therapy. I participated for about 2.5 years. Um, and it was wonderful. I thanked my therapist all the time. And I used those tools, okay, all the way through 2012 and even thereafter. And then in 2012 is when I really started getting serious about, like, okay, I don't want this ever to happen, thinking that I could literally stop it from ever happening again. Foolish me. But anyway, so from 2012 though until that next one in 2021, I believe it was pretty, I was able, to get a hold of how I dealt with stress. And in that time frame, actually, I had already started going to a naturopathic doctor. So, or seeing and, getting help from a naturopathic doctor for anxiety in 2012. So even with all that support in 2012, I still ended up, in that situation that I did not want. And even still, right? I was still like, okay, I can keep going and, you know, work toward the better me. So when that somewhat happened again in 2021, I was so proud of myself because I used the tools that I had been learning ever since 2001, right? But thereafter in 2012 and thereon, as I was learning. And by then I was already coaching others. So you can imagine that I was feeling kind of, defeated. I was like, gosh, I'm supposed to be able to handle life because I am coaching others in their own, um, discernment of dealing with anxiety. Not realizing, hello, I'm human. Things happen. Okay. So then, okay, um, in 2023, in December of 2023, unfortunately, I had a doozy of an episode. It was not cool. I put myself and the person that was taking care of my aunt in danger because I was driving. I really should not have been from the get-go, based on how I was feeling. But anyway, knock on wood, I got to my Aunt Thea's house and then thereafter had to call my sisters and say, okay, I need help. This isn't good. But because of my mental fitness, by then I was already working through the positive intelligence programs. I realized that I was able to recover. Okay. Now, yeah, I recovered back in 21, but that wasn't a doozy. The one in 2023, that episode I had, yeah, that was one of the doozies. It was very similar to what happened in 2012. And so much so that when I came through, and then that night, I was already starting to feel better. The next morning, I was actually able to function. I was like literally like, whoa, I literally feel like whatever happened yesterday didn't happen. And that was remarkable. Why? Because of my mental fitness. I was able to use all of that horrible excess energy, but I let it come out of my body as best I could, as safely as possible. And then I was brought back to neutral. And I was thinking, wow, that was awesome. And I was so proud of myself. And just recently, I probably had two different episodes. One that did end me in the ER recently, and then a few days later, had one, but I called the nurses station or what they call triage, right? And they had recommended me that I go, but then they always ask you an end question. They ask, had you not called this, nurse triage, what would have been your next steps? And I told her, well, I'm a wellness coach. I think this is because she even said it was probably an anxiety episode. And she's like, what would you have done had you not called me? I'm like, well, I'm going to do what exactly I always do. I'm going to get on the floor, ground myself, and then work myself into a better state of calm. And she seemed rather okay with that. Now, they can't tell you their opinion, but her tone and her way of sending me off with good, good advice. And she did say, it would be her advice, right, to go to the ER. But she said, be well, meaning I took her advice so much as that I got dressed just in case, because she said within an hour, I would suggest you go. But after she heard what I was going to do, she was like, probably thinking, okay, within that hour, she's probably going to be able to get herself into a better position. Now, that's not what she said, but I felt the vibe, right? I felt that she was like, okay, she's feeling okay. She's not in danger per se. The only reason why they want to go, right, is because there's not a true way to, unless you have a heart monitor of some kind, to know how fast. Now, I was not in the best of, ways, but I was still able to, literally, I grounded myself. I took my own advice. I ended up sleeping on the floor that night and actually have been since then. And that's because, for all intents and purposes, when we are grounding, right, we are feeling the energy, the healing energy from the earth. Okay. So Do I always want to sleep on the ground? Not necessarily, but hey, I mean, if all the Asian, like Japanese people sleep on the floor, Chinese people, I mean, it's, kind of actually really awesome for your body for obvious reasons, right? But for now, at least, I do feel like sleeping closer to the ground is a good option for me. But it was my mental fitness. I used my yoga training. I listened to my favorite 20-minute yoga nidra. Was I as in tune with it as I could have been? Heck no. I was still trying to get through what was happening. But while I was tired the next day, unlike in 23 when I had more energy, right? I am in the ends of menopause. Now, I was in menopause and I was probably in premenopause, perimenopause back in 2023. So this time around, I have a lot less, uh, hormonal stability going on. So, of course, my body is going to need extra support. So, while I wasn't revving to go the next day, I did give myself a lot of grace and I was able to function. That's what's important is like realizing that no matter where I'm at in life, if I can bring myself back to a state of neutral in any way, shape, or form, that means that I'm using my mental fitness and I'm not relying on outside forces. Now, again, if you have really high, severe, any type of mental disorder, then yeah, you're gonna probably need any type of prescribed medications from your psychologist, or rather psychiatrist, right? Psychiatrists are the ones that can prescribe, sorry. But what I'm getting at, quite simply, is just the fact that my mental fitness got me through what was not fun. And again, there's other factors still unknown right now. But I know in my heart of hearts that whatever happens, that my body can heal itself for the most part. I might need some extra help here and there, and I'm willing to give it that. But I do not need to presume that there's only one route, which is Western medicine. I will hopefully marry or not have to marry the two alternative, homeopathy, right, and Western. If I'm holding out for hope that everything is okay for the most part, that whatever is going on right now, I can heal it naturally. And then we'll get to that part if otherwise I need to seek out extra help, right? But my own mental fitness is not always going to be stellar. The hypervigilance took over because there's a lot going on in the world. And my health is something I can control, but there are outside forces that are making it a lot less uh, functional, I guess you could say, to help keep me healthy, right? There is a lot going on in the United States, and it is scary. And so, of course, my body is feeling that it's at risk. So I get to assure it every step of the way that I can still, you know, function. And it doesn't have to be at a hypervigilance. It doesn't have to be overly cautious. It can be a steady flow state, which is going to definitely help all my anxiety. It will help eliminate most of the problems that are going on, okay, within me. And it's definitely going to help my mental fitness to learn how low I can actually go, meaning how neutral can I get that bar? Like the lower the bar is, the less chance I have of it ever getting too high, right? Our threshold is what we make it. And so my recommendation to you is one, definitely let's talk because again, having anxiety is tough. And we all need anxiety. We all have anxiety. If we didn't, we would be dead, quite literally. But when we have too much of it, it's not fun, right? But I can assure you, as a wellness coach for my fellow female activists, of which I am one, it's so important right now that we observe our own signals. Our body is always cautioning us as to how far it will allow you to go. And if you push too hard, it is going to tell you nope, and it's going to say so very loudly. But instead, how about we give it the ease and flow it wants to live in, try to get it to homeostasis, and then always find a way to keep it low, that nervous system, right? We don't want to strain it because the more calm we are, the more we can give to others, right? It's not about giving, giving, giving and never taking. We must slow down to speed up. That's my favorite yoga instructor, Bry. Her favorite line, we will stop to start. What happened to me recently is a reminder, like that. I mean, let's be honest, right? Like that could have been it. Like my body could have said, you're done, well, good night, quite literally. And it didn't. So I get to take my signals seriously and then explain to others how I was able to overcome, right? What was troubling me, and then help others circumvent what I went through. If I can help someone else not go through what I did, then I have done my work. So, with that, today, mental fitness, do not berate yourself. Do not berate yourself for being human. Some days we're going to be more resilient than others. And if we have the right mental fitness training and we really work those muscles, you can be literally almost unstoppable. All right. So until next time, take care and take charge.